Hey, welcome to my channel. All right. Yesterday, when the news broke, I was still processing it. Let's be honest. I was still processing it because the day before, yesterday, Diaz was gone. So I'm like, part of me was like, okay, fine, so be it. Quite honestly, it was a case where, from my perspective, this is a guy that didn't want to be with the Mets. That kind of pissed me off and irked me a little bit because like this is a guy that opted out, which made sense, I guess, from a money perspective. But this is a guy that pretty much didn't want to be with the Mets because he wanted to go to LA. You could tell he wanted to go to LA. I mean, if anything, he would have gone to the Yankees, maybe the Cubs, the Blue Jays, for that matter. No, this is a case where he wanted to go to LA. So I was like, all right, fine. He didn't want to be with the Mets. And I was like, all right, fine, so be it. But then the Alonso news broke. I was still in I don't want to say relative shock, but it was like, this is a man that came up through the system and reminiscent of exactly like Darryl Strawberry, if you remember, coming with the Mets and then went off to to the LA Dodgers. In this situation, though, this is a case where basically Pete Alonso is going off to the Baltimore Orioles. I mean, at least Alonso didn't go to the Dodgers. I'll be honest. At least he didn't go there. But I was more irked. Now, granted, these two guys leaving, I'm not. It's it's not to say that this would probably hinder them because let's be honest. I mean, Diaz as good. I mean, he would have one good year, one bad year, and then another good year. He was on and off basically. And the other problem is like, let's be honest. I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, every time he came to the mound, I would freak out a little bit. I'm like, okay, please, he's got that great entrance music, but at the same time, it's one of those things where, sometimes you get the bases loaded with no outs. You're up by 3 runs or 2 runs, and bases are loaded, and then eventually, like you got one out, and you're like freaking the hell out. But then he's able to get out of it. But that might be maybe because of the catchers and pitching coach at that time with Hefner basically calling the pitches for him. But in any situation, and likelihood was is like I figured okay he's going. Devin Williams might be okay, but reality is like let's be honest. I mean Devin Williams is from Milwaukee. He didn't do so well with the Yankees. I don't know what Sturge was thinking. Outside the fact is all right. Maybe he's trying to get him up as a center man. But it sounds like, but it seems like now based on what had just happened, it seems like more of he was setting up to let Diaz go and he's using Devin Williams as the replacement. That's what it seems like. That's what it seems like he was trying to do. I don't know what Stearns is thinking because numbers might say otherwise. I have no idea. There's a guy that's a fully immersed stats guy. We'll see what happens because reality is like I didn't understand it from that perspective because finding out what I'm finding out now is not only the fact that Diaz leaving and Alonso leaving. Now, granted, Alonso you could tell he wanted to stay, and he did. You saw what he did last year. Basically, he signed for 2 years. He's like, all right, let me bet on myself because, like, well, let's be honest. Last year, or no team was willing to pay him that kind of money, and so as a result, he was like, you know what, I'm going to bet on myself and then raise my stock price a little bit higher, which he did as a result. Quite honestly, I was a little surprised that like the Cubs never came into play, the Phillies as well as the Blue Jays. For that, I mean, honestly, the Blue Jays, or if I'm the Blue Jays or Seattle Mariners, you sign him at this point. Honestly, try to make a play for him. Even the Dodgers, even though Dodgers have Freeman, so. But in any situation, and for that matter, Boston Red Sox, I thought Boston would have like come in and try to get him basically. But in any situation, the thing is the fact that Baltimore comes in and basically like threw me for a loop. I'm like, all right, let's see how Baltimore does with him, and let's see how he does. Reality is like, all right, you know what? Maybe he can be replaceable because we do have Soto and we do have Lindora. I mean, there's news coming about now or rumors coming around now that basically a lot of the team members were not warming up to Soto. Like Soto was being standoffish. He was pretty much not a team player. It's possible. I don't know. I was thinking more of like Alonso wasn't a team player because when it came push come to shove, you'll see. You could look at all these past games. When there was a man on base, he was swinging for the fences. When in reality, if there was a man on second and he's swinging for the fences, like you wanna, and there's no outs, why are you swinging for the fences? Just advance the runner at that point. and you were saying that he was not trying to do it. He was swinging for the fences. He wanted to get those numbers, which I understand from from a perspective like, hey, look, let's get them, let's get in the runs, let's get the lead or whatnot, or break down the lead at that point. Reality is like I'm not entirely sure because I mean, it felt like for me Alonso was a little bit full of himself. Let's be honest, he sounded a little bit full of himself, but at the same time, he was at least a team what based player because if you do see from a perspective not from the batting perspective but more so from the personality perspective with his teammates, at least he was definitely there for them from that aspect. um, my thing was is that pissed me off, I think, and I think every other Met fan is pissed off as well too, is the fact that when Diaz left and when Alonso left, the fact of the matter is what they were getting paid for, the Mets never made any kind of intuitive counteroffer. That's the thing that pissed me off. Is like Cohen came on board in 2020, 2021, saying he's like, hey, look, I've got the money. I'm willing to take the loss because, like, let's be honest, with the Mets, he could take a loss because he could take it as write off for his other, his hedge fund and whatnot. So from that aspect, I was like, all right, you know what? If you made an offer, a valid offer, then okay, fine. And he left. All right, that means they didn't want to be there. But it sounds like more so to the point like they did not make an offer, and I don't understand why. If this is a guy that's trying to build a team, you try to at least make some offer at least. But the fact that he didn't make any offer pissed me off, and that's why I'm a little irked at this point. I was like, I don't know what Steve Cohen's doing because like, did he bamboozle us? Like we knew what the Will Palms were when the Will Palms were in. We knew where they were. We knew what they were thinking. Basically, like, look, we gotta. I'm sorry, we can't pay you that kind of money. Go. We're gonna try to do a Moneyball type of thing. Is this a case where Cohen's trying to do that, or is it more of a case where, like, I mean, let's be honest, 5 years? I could have lived with that for Alonso for 5 years. I mean, I thought he was looking for 7 to 8 years. I'm like, I don't know if we could do 7 to 8 years, but 5 years, 4 to 5, 4 years would have made sense. Honestly, let him do it for 4 years. If we did 4 years, it might have worked out really well for him for both teams from both sides, or 5 years from that man. If they worked for 5 years from both sides, that's he'd be 36. I mean, he could still be a DH at that point. The question is, would he become another Ron Howard in his final year of his contract? It's possible, possibly not. But reality is like 3 to 4 years. At least we could have gotten another 3 4 years out of him at that point. But the fact that the Mets never made that counteroffer, like really pissed me off. And the other aspect is when Diaz went to LA. Okay, granted, Mets could have countered, but they never did. And that's what threw me off a little bit too. It was like 3 years. I'm like, Diaz. Look, honestly, I was ready to boo the hell out of him if he came to Shea Stadium. I mean, to Citi Field. I was gonna boo the hell out of him. I was like, yeah, you left this, you little mucker. But in reality is now it's more of like you can't boo him because the Mets never made him a counteroffer. So it sounds like it felt like he wanted to, based on the fact that he left, it felt like he didn't want to be here. But now the fact that they didn't make that counteroffer, it felt like more. I mean, I don't know. The thing is, there are other rumors as well too. Like like hey. From Diaz's camp, they didn't really tell the offer to the Mets, so that's why they couldn't counter. But that could be the Mets spinning it at that point. Honestly, I don't know. That's a possibility. I don't know because the fact of the matter is with Diaz leaving and now Alonso leaving, and then we traded away Nimmo. Now, I understand what they were trying to do for Nimmo, but it was a 1-to-1 swap. But reality is like we swapped for an older player, and I don't know why it made no sense. This is the same Nimmo. This is the player that Stearns and Cohen wanted, and they signed him for that long-term contract. The fact that they were like, "Oh, we need more defense," made sense, but at the same time, is Nimmo was a guy that came through the system, and you wanted him to retire. I mean, honestly, I don't think the last person I think that came through the Met system that retired as a Met was David Wright. That's it. Honestly, I don't think there's any other player that we've had that came up through the Met system, through the farm system, and then retired as a Met. I mean, I thought Alonso would be that other guy. I thought maybe Nimmo would be that other guy for sure too. Nimmo was a player. Let's be honest. Nimmo was a team player. Nimmo loved being a Met. You could tell he loved being a Met. Now that he was traded, I mean, like I still don't understand what Stern's plan is. I feel like he's trying to be a numbers guy. Let the numbers, determine some algorithm that determine what place we should get. But get it from a point of like what he was at Milwaukee. This is New York. You have an owner with a big pocketbook. The question is is Cohen bamboozling those things? Like I have a big pocket, but in reality is like telling stars like, hey, I want you to. This is your budget, and that's it. If that's the case, all right. You know what? At least let us know. Let us know that hey, this is your budget, and this is what it is. You want to play money well, but this is your budget, and that's it. Just let us know. Because quite honestly, I'm for me personally, I'm all for it. Because reality is like players' salaries are going up to wazoo, and you know there's going to be another case of a salary cap because like all these small market teams can't compete. So they're going to probably think about like hey, we got to create a salary cap at this point. Players are going to strike as a result, and I'm going to be fully upfront and honest with you. This is a case where I think if Cohen is setting that standard of trying to create a budget, as like, hey, this is your cap to Stearns, like this is it. I don't want to spend any more money. Let us know what that cap is. Like you created that cap, let us know. Unless there's a special extenuating circumstance, you know, I mean, let's be honest, like, you go out and sign Soto for 14 years. You give him that 4 year opt out as well, too, quite honestly. Like, and the thing is, if Soto at 4 years sucks, you're screwed at that point. So, but anyways, um, um, this is I don't know. This is like December already, only December. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in January and February, specifically January, what the Mets do, because quite honestly, I don't know how the Mets recoup from this, or Stearns recoups his reputation, because I'll be honest, let's look at it. We got lucky last year from the players that he was able to sign, but reality is like outside of Soto, if you look, every player that he's traded for or signed weren't big name splashes. Like outside of Scherzer and Verlander, which turned out to be a huge mistake, of course. But then again, that was a situation where I think they learned like because like that was more of them being reactive when Degrom left. Reality is like this is a situation where I don't think Starts has done anything to the point where it warrants the Mets fans to say, like, hey, we know what direction you're going. Because reality is, I don't see it. Because I had granted Kerber Burns when he left, and he signed out, signed with what's their names. Granted, that year he just had he got injured, made sense. But reality is like this is a dude like next year, this following year, he's probably gonna come back stronger, and he would have been really helpful for our rotation. Let's be honest, Burns in our rotation would have been very helpful for us. Uh, and he probably could have been that stopgap as well too, to like kind of mentorish, basically McLean, Sprout, and Tong. Now, like I said I think Tong maybe should be a closer. I don't know. I'm hoping that he can be a starter and like be that dominant starter, but I think he might be your closer from that perspective. Minea, I don't know what's gonna happen with Minea because like it sounds like more and more that Minea, we got lucky the first year with Minea. This second year, he didn't do really well, and I have a feeling there's going to be problems with him the following season as well too. And I think everyone's figured him out. And quite honestly, I hate to say this, but like Minea might not be what we anticipated him to be. I think everyone figured him out because like once he made that adjustment to his pitching delivery, it kind of changed the trajectory of the ball a little bit. But I think now the player hitters have seen it and adapted to it, and that's what they're getting to him now. Unless Minea adapts to these hitters and changes his style a little bit more, I don't know. Honestly, I'm a little surprised that people aren't using AI now at this point. Like now that AI is becoming more and more sophisticated, you can use AI on a slew of historical from the history of the pitchers when they're pitching the pitching styles to notice if there's any tells at that point. You could use AI to figure out if there are tells at that point. I wouldn't be surprised if they're using it. I would use it because right now people are using their eyes. Reality is now you could just use AI. Go back to like as far as back as they can get with videos of these pitchers. It's like, do they have a tell? Boom, give it to us. If there isn't, huh? Maybe I can create something of that nature. I just gotta create the proper model for that. So I'm just thinking aloud. Hey, you all can run with that as well too. But I'm just trying to figure out like you got to grab the pictures, which shouldn't be a problem. Videos themselves, which shouldn't be a problem. It's just a matter of making sure that the model has each of the setup and delivery and their stance all correctly in place, making sure that it's every pitch basically, and you could tell from that what it was, a ball, strike. But well, there's the aspect of what they're delivering and what the end result is, but making sure the end result of what, realistically speaking, that's what it is versus what the umpire call. Because reality is like umpires are going to be subjective. So if it's a curve on the outside and it's a ball, but in reality it's a strike, then you know that he was throwing a curve on the outside for a strike. But anyway, sorry, I'm going outside of my outside of the main fact. Is it's going to be interesting to see what happens between now and the season starts. If we can get Paulski, I'll be honest. If looking at all these, if we can get Tatis, like there are rumors now that we could probably trade for Tatis. The question is, I don't know who we trade with for what. I don't know what capital we can use to get him, as well as Machado. If we get Tatis and Machado, boy, that would be a lineup that I think would freak the hell out of everyone. Yeah, granted, on the San Diego Padres, everyone's like, "Hey, this should have been a great lineup. They should have gone far with Machado, Tatis, and Soto." If we the Mets could get him, I think this might help him out in the long term. Actually, I think this would be a dangerous lineup. Basically, it would almost become. It could have been a new murderer's row. Let's be honest. It could have been a new murderer's row if Machado and Tatis was here, were to come to the Mets, and if also the fact is that we had Alonso. Oh, that would have been on the and you had Soto and then Lindor. It would have been a new murderer's row. But in any case, it's not. Oh, we can only dream. We can only dream. But in reality is like I said, this is a case where I think the Mets. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what Stearns can do as well as Cohen can do to basically rebuild their reputation, because right now it feels like, I don't know. I could be wrong. You let me know. Does it feel like Stearns is basically still in the mindset of Milwaukee Brewer type of? This is Mr. Milwaukee. It seems like, even though he grew up in New York, in Queens, being a Mets fan, it seems like this is a guy that's more focused on just being from the mindset of a Milwaukee Brewer, hey, I got a fixed set of fixed budget, and this is what I'm gonna do. But reality is like, from what Coleman was saying, it doesn't seem like it. But that could be publicly what they're saying. Reality is that could be internally within it. So it'd be good to know if that's the case. If there is, just let us know. We'll be fans would be a little bit more forgiving if you let us know what the cap is that you're setting it at to be. Just let us know. I mean, if would you be okay if they gave us actually what the cap was, and then we can figure it out at that point? All right, fine, we understand. But if you're coming in as Mr. Moneybags, hey, no player is too good, we're gonna spend, and reality, you don't. I mean, honestly, this is a case where Cohen's I spent the money on the players. Now you got to come into the stadium. We showed up. We the fans showed up, and we got smack dab nothing as a result of it. I wasn't even entertained in half those games, honestly. I mean, you as a fan as well too. If you went there, if you were entertained, more power to you. I was not entertained, quite honestly, because it felt like the players, the team was not fighting for it, and that's what pissed me off. Honestly, I knew from the beginning that we didn't have any starters. We didn't have a clear number one and number two. And please do not say Senga. If anyone says Senga, please do not say Senga, because you've seen what happened last year and the year before that and the year before that. This is a guy, he starts off really strong and then sucks at the end. You see that decline in the middle of the season and towards the end of the season at that point. Whether he gets injured or whatnot, he always declines at that point. So this is a case where if you're expecting Senga to be your number one ace, don't. If you're expecting Manea to be your ace, don't. Because you see what happened. You saw what happened last year. Players adjusted and they figured him out. Unless he adjusts and adapts, it's going to be the same thing over again. And this is why the Giants let him go. This is why the San Francisco Giants let him go, because we knew full well that if San Francisco could got one more year out of Manea by changing his delivery, I think they would have done that. Reality is once he did that, every hitter adapted to him. And you're going to say, hey, what about what's his name, Vientos and Batty. Time will only tell about those two. Time will only tell. I mean, Kelnick, when we traded Kelnick for Diaz, I thought that was a mistake. That was a huge mistake. But It turned out to be okay for the Mets because Kellen is not really doing much, even with the Braves. So like, okay, we got lucky, I guess, in this situation. My thing is like, if Diaz, I'm hoping Diaz does suck with the Dodgers. I'll be honest, I'm hoping he sucks with the Dodgers. I'm hoping Alonso, let him. Great, Baltimore wants to pay him. Let him pay him for that kind of money. If he sucks, I mean, it's possible. I mean, I don't want to give him the benefit of the doubt, but it's possible. It's possible. Stearns and his evaluators have figured out that Alonso is on the decline as well as Diaz, and that's why they probably never made a counteroffer. I don't know. That's the only thing I can think of outside of the fact of like they don't want to give players long term deals. So the only thing I can think of is like they must know something that we don't know. I don't know. Again, time will only tell. Let me know your thoughts. And in regards to Moore being fired from University of Michigan, I'm not gonna say much about it because I'm gonna wait and see what comes out as a result. Because like he hasn't made a statement yet himself. Michigan, they just fired him, but they with cause, but they haven't said exactly why. They haven't released anything else beyond that. He's got already the law enforcement is basically looking into arresting him or indicting him at least, whatever it may be. But I don't know. Only time will tell. But if he is fired and he's done, if I'm Michigan, I go for Dable. I hate to say this, Brian Dable would be a great college coach. If and this is a man that can lead his players and build them up at that point. Brian Dable, I think, would be a great head coach for a college football team, whether it be at Alabama, LSU. I mean, with Alabama though, you have the great Nick Saban. You have to follow up through, and you have to live up to that legacy. But it's possible you can do that, or go to Michigan maybe and build up Michigan at that point. But I don't know. That's outside of that. I'm sorry. I just that's like you're hearing stuff here and there. But anyways, like I said, with the Mets, there's probably more to it. I don't know. Should I be more angered? I would. I think I'm a little bit more angry, not at the players themselves, but more so Cohen, because the fact that we're hearing that they never made a counter offer. They never made a counter. They're saying, oh, if we know we would have made a counter. I think they were fully aware, and there's rumors going about at the winter meetings that they're like saying, does Stearns know what he's doing? Because he just led both Alonso and Diaz, two really one of his set of core players that are really good, that are damn near pretty good. Let them go. Because let's be honest, Stearns didn't really get Soto. It was Cohen that got Soto. But I think Cohen got Soto because more so the mystique that surrounded Soto at that point. Reality is like had he gone for Otani, they never made a play for Otani. You could tell they never made it for Otani, and they were trying to go so badly for Yamamoto. Now looking at it, Yamamoto made sense to come to the Mets. If he was with the Mets, I think he would have been the number one at that point. The reality is, it's like, yeah, it would have been great if we got Otani. All I'm saying is this: it would have been good if the Mets were willing to pay to get some of these players. Otani's a rare, once in a lifetime generational player. Soto felt like a generational player, but time will only tell at this point as well too. But with that, I'll leave it at that. I mean, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I would love to hear your thoughts about this as well too, because like, are you angry about this more so to the point like of both what Cohen and Stearns is doing, and like the fact is like they never made a counteroffer and they don't know what the hell they're doing. Like we're getting screwed, and that they are coming from a perspective of like Stearns is looking like as though he's back in Milwaukee. Mr. Milwaukee's doing what he's doing. And reality is like this is New York, and maybe we get a new GM. I hate to say it, but maybe we get a new GM. If we get a Brian Cashman, that'd be great. If maybe I have no idea who else. I mean, honestly, I'll be honest. I might as well just use ChatGPT. Let's just use ChatGPT as our GM basically to like see what could be done. I wouldn't mind using that. Let's see what ChatGPT does. But anyways, in that situation, that's all I can say. With that, I'll leave it at that. Unfiltered, unedited. Of course, I'm rehearsed. Until next time.